Hey, hey, it's the House of AC. Welcome to my house. Another episode here that I'm excited about. I love it. I love talking to people that are just basically inspirational. And I'm at the age now where everyone that I'm talking to is younger than me, and I'm getting inspiration from them. And it's fun. It's exciting to learn all the struggles that people go through. It's not fun, the struggles, but the outcome of those struggles and the perseverance that it takes to overcome them, it is very inspirational. And also the stories that the lessons learned is something that I think everyone should listen to and apply to their own life. And so that's our guest today is Tiffany Grant, and you might have heard of her. She's very prolific on. Oh, my phone is ringing. I'm not prepared there. I'm sorry. Tiffany Grant, very prolific on social media. She's got her own podcast, Money Talk with Tiff. Tiff is one of those young hustlers who's self-taught and teaching herself as she goes. And then she's doing what I admire is teaching others. Hey, this is what I've learned. This is what I'm doing. She's got her finances in order as a single mom of two kids. Started 5 years ago when she was 26, bought her first house. And I think there's something for everyone here, regardless of your age, where you are in your finances. Before we bring her in here, I just want to say, hey, if you like this, follow her on social media at Money Talk with T, is where you can find her. Also, if you like this show, follow the House of AC. Thanks for tuning in, or listening to the podcast, or watching this later on YouTube. Sponsored as always by my shirt, Jasmine Mortgage Team. If you need to get a mortgage, refinance, cash out. However, that's where I go to get my mortgages, and I recommend everyone do the same. I've done multiple deals with them, and I send all my clients there as a real estate realtor to Jasmine Mortgage Team, and they always come back and they say thank you. They've really made our life easier. Licensed in 48 states, so doesn't matter where you are. Go to jasminemortgageteam.com, and you will get your best deal in your mortgage. Is going to be super easy. You're going to have someone hand holding you the whole way, and highly recommended. Personal recommendation there. Okay, let's get going with this exciting live stream. And welcome to the show, Tiff.
Hey, how's it going? Thank you so much for having me on.
I like the acronym that you've made for Tiff. If you want to share that.
Yeah, teaching and inspiring financial freedom. Yes.
TIFF. So Tiffany Grant here, Money Talk with Tiff. So you started your money journey 5 years ago, or you just started chronicling your money journey 5 years ago?
Yeah, I'm going to say I started chronicling it
Okay.
because I really started back, I had to be like 23 or so, somewhere up in there. I had just had my youngest son, and I was like, I got denied for a credit card. I only asked for $200, by the way, and got denied. And I said, okay, this can't be life. Something is not right here. And so I was like, I have to do things differently. So that's kind of when the journey kind of started. Was back then I started paying more attention to what was on my credit report. I got another job because that was one of the reasons I got denied. They said that I didn't make enough money. And so that kind of just gave me awareness, like, wait a minute, I don't make enough money. Like, how much are people making? So,
Right.
so I decided to get another job making a little bit more. And when I went back to that same credit union, got the same representative, I was like, thank you so much for like telling me this stuff, because I had no idea. And that's what I tell people now. It's all about awareness. You have to kind of be aware of your financial situation before you can make any type of changes. And so they made me aware. I made some changes, and then I started on this journey. And that back then, that's when I started budgeting, started getting my money in order, and the rest is history.
So when you said you got an additional job, or did you get a second job, or did you leave your job to get a higher paying job?
So at that time, I had left my job to get a higher paying job.
Right.
Because I want to say at that time I was only making like $9, $10 an hour. And
Yeah.
for me, I was like, oh, this is great. I thought that was good. And when I went there, she was like, yeah, no, those are pennies. So I was like, okay, I need to, get something a little more substantial. But during this time frame, like from 23 to I'll probably say 27 or so, I did work like 2 jobs, driving Uber and Lyft on the weekends, like just any means necessary, like
Right.
trying to get debt paid off. So yeah.
So let's start. It's difficult. I would imagine some people listening here saying, "Hey, I'm making $9, $10 an hour." Like, how do you just go back by about getting a better paying job? Like you made it sound very easy, but I would imagine you went through some hoops to achieve that.
Yeah, so honestly, what happened was, so I was working at that time, I was working at a thrift store. That's why I was making like $9, $10 an hour. And I ended up getting a career coach. So that's why I tell people, please get some mentors, coaches in your life because it makes a huge difference. I got a career coach, and I was also in school full time for my bachelor's degree too. So while I was in school, she was kind of coaching me through what I needed to do in the meantime, in between time. So that way, once I graduated, I was able to just swoop over into a better job.
Got it. Got it. And what field were you working in?
So back then, oh, I've had so many different I've had so many different like careers, even though
Right.
I'm only 31. But back then I went into administrative work because when
Okay.
I was in undergrad, I was like, oh, I just want to be an administrative assistant, work my way up to executive assistant, and just be like a CEO's right hand girl, right? But then I got the first taste of that, which is a receptionist, and I said, no, 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 this can't be life, because I didn't like that I couldn't make any decisions, but everybody was telling me what to do.
Right.
So I was like, okay, while I was at that position, I saw the HR person, making her rounds and things, and she kind of took me under her wing. So once again, another mentor, and kind of told me about HR. And so my like main career in corporate America was HR. Because after that position, I got my first position in HR, and I kind of climbed up the corporate ladder to the point I was a step below VP when I called it quits.
Yeah, I love this. So, to me, what I take from this, and I wrote a book called "The Subversive Job Search," which was basically how I navigated corporate America after the financial crisis. And to me, what I've learned is just get your foot in the door in either a company you want to work for, or B, an industry you want to work for. And then once you're in, then you can sort of navigate to where you want to go, and almost like try on different hats. And it sounds like you did exactly that. Hey, at least I got my foot in the door of this company. Wow, this receptionist job's not for me, but maybe HR. I've got someone here who's I would be excited to work under and be a mentee, and vice versa. They're excited to be a mentor. Do you have any advice for someone who might find themselves in that situation, who to sort of, how do you get someone to take you under your their wing?
Yeah. So I want to say, like, I just showed interest. She would come in because, granted, at that company, they did not have an HR person until she walked through the door. And she came in after I was already working there. So as a receptionist, I know everything. I know everybody, that type of thing. So, I was helping her get acclimated and everything. And while I was doing that, I was asking her questions about what she was doing. Because,
Yeah.
for instance, to give you an example, she put up, the notice that you have to have, saying that you do e-verify and things like that. We didn't have that because apparently nobody knew that we needed to. And so when she was putting it up, I was like, oh, why are you doing that? She was like, well, if we don't put this up, we can get fined if anybody finds out. And, just giving me the gist of what was going on. And so I would sit in her office sometimes and she would just tell me like the different things that she was doing. Or when she came up to the receptionist desk, she would just drop gems on me. So it was kind of like a unofficial mentor-mentee relationship, but I just showed interest in what she was doing. And then I'll also tell people too, when you're looking to get your foot in the door, don't be afraid of temp agencies, because that's how I was able to get into HR. If anybody knows HR, I mean, most people just age in place. You can rarely get a position. But fortunately, I went through a temporary agency and they were able to find me a position at the starter level.
Right.
And so that's kind of how I got into that.
I really want to hammer in on showing interest, because a lot
Mhm.
of people that it's your work culture, 9 to 5, people are just showing up for the paycheck. How exciting would it be if someone showed up and they're like, teach me everything about your job? Like, who doesn't want to help that person? Like that's just as exciting. I mean, I have a real estate team, and people are like, "Oh, teach me how to be a real estate agent." And I'm like, "Yeah, I've been doing this. This is what I love about it. This is exciting." And you just feed off each other's energy. It makes the day go so much better. And everyone, it just, you're providing value to that mentor, whether you know it or not. Like, you just bring an excitement and joy to their job. It's very rewarding to see someone else grow in their career. So if you're listening out here, just it is that interest, and not a fake interest, right? It's not like, I just want to make more money. How do I do it? It's, oh, tell me the nuances, and oh, this is exciting, and what's the new technology, or why are we doing those questions? Like, why? Like, most people are like, this is how we do things, okay, with no questioning. Like, but so kudos to you for doing that.
Yeah, and I will say, back like feeding off of what you said, we went over the good, the bad, and the ugly. So if there was anything going on where, now, of course, we had to keep it confidential, but if there was anything going on that we could have gotten in trouble for, or a complaint came through, she was just keeping me in the loop. And also, I was not only showing interest, but kind of just brainstorming back and forth with her too. So I kind of became someone that she was able to bounce ideas off, and then we can kind of get through issues together, even though I was still being paid the same. But that's why I tell people, don't be afraid. I tell my students now, don't be afraid of like unpaid internships, or, kind of going a little bit above and beyond at your job, because it just shows that you have an interest of sticking around and moving up.
Right. Yeah. No, I love that. And are you still working in HR currently?
No. So I actually went full-time entrepreneur in 2019. But not to say that I don't love HR, I still have my certifications and stuff like that. And I do some consulting work occasionally just to keep my feet wet. But no, I'm not in HR currently.
Well, that's exciting that you took the temp job, well, the $9 an hour thrift store job, turned it into navigated into a temp job, all because you wanted to buy a house, right? Like you have to make money. Like, that was the result, that, the feedback you got. And then you okay, well, let me go get paid more. And then, you work, you get a temp job at a desk, and then you work your way up through HR, you get all the certificates. And now you're like, oh, I've learned a lot. I'm able to navigate the corporate environment. Let me strike out on my own as an entrepreneur. And I love talking to entrepreneurs all day. So let's talk now. What's the entrepreneurial business that you've started?
Oh yeah, so it's Money Talk with Tiff. So kind of how I started this, I started while I was in HR. So I started back in 2017, and I would work my day job, go to school full time, because I was going to school for my master's at that point. I would go to school full time and then come home and start writing on the blog, just working on Money Talk, and to the point where I had to like pull myself off the computer every night, because I was having so much fun. And so it was like, you know what, Tiffany, you're having so much fun doing this. Why aren't you doing this full time? Like, what's the problem? So then I realized, okay, Tiffany, if this is your passion and this is what you love to do, kind of figure out a plan on how to get there. So while I was working my full-time job, I was still aggressively paying off debt and also funneling money into Money Talk. And I was budgeting really heavy too. So I knew how much I needed to make every day in order to survive, in order to pay my bills. At that time, it was like $50. So I was like, okay, $50, I can drive Uber and Lyft for like 2 or 3 hours, make $50, and then I can have the rest of the day to work on Money Talk. So when I started making things more concrete in my mind, like, wait a minute, like I'm sitting here for 8, 9, sometimes even more, because I was salary, hours a day working this job, when really all I have to work is like 2 to 3 hours, and then I can be off for the rest of the day. So as I started thinking that through, I was like, okay, let me go ahead and start saving, that type of thing. And then when it was time for me where I felt comfortable, I was like, all right, I'm chucking the deuces. And, it was funny because a lot of my coworkers were like, well, where are you going? That's everybody's first question. And when I was like, home, like I'm going to work on my business, they were like, what? But you have 2 boys and you're a single mom, and, you have your mortgage payment. Like, how are you going to do everything? And that's one thing I learned too. Don't allow other people to project their fears onto you. I know for me, I knew my numbers. I knew what made sense for me. And so all of that chatter really didn't do much for me because I knew what I was looking at. I knew my finances were in order. So I was like, you know what? Even if I have to go drive Uber and Lyft for a couple of hours every day, or let's say I had to go pick up a quick, part-time gig or whatever, I'm like, I still would have enough time for me to work on my projects and build that to where I want it to go.
So I think this is an actual item for our listeners. It's one, figure out what you spend, what's your expenses each month. Like that. Look, if you don't know that, how are you going to plan, right? How are you going to tackle that plan? How are you going to improve upon that plan? And this is a very FIRE movement, sort of activity too, which is financial independence, retire early, trying to figure out how much money it takes to retire. But you just said, let's just figure it out per month. How much am I spending per month? Your mortgage, your whatever bills, your debts, the food, all that. You just figured out a month budget, and then you reverse engineered it per day. And then it's, to me, if everyone does that, you can either say, wow, this is more achievable than I think. $50 a day, that's 2 or 3 hours in an Uber, right? Like you, that opened up your eyes, that unlocked your financial, your personal freedom. Then unlock the idea of leaving your day job, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you can just reverse engineer it. And so people who do this exercise, and maybe it turns into $300 a day, you can either say, okay, well, I need to find another opportunity that pays more, like you did, or hey, I need to reduce some of my expenses, or a combination of both, so that you can kind of unlock this path.
Mm-hmm.
And what also I want to jump onto, which I think is crucial, is when you said, I really enjoy this, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing something that you enjoy for a job, it doesn't feel like a job. It doesn't feel like work. Like it's fun. It's a hobby. You're getting paid to do your hobby, right? Like, who doesn't want to do that?
Yeah, like literally, like every day, like I have to literally have like boundaries where I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, Tiffany, it's time to get off because I have so much fun doing what I do and I can do it all day, every day. And the beauty of it too is it's so flexible. Like if I don't want to have meetings one day, well, guess what? I just block it off on my calendar. Or if I don't feel like doing this, well, guess what? I don't have to do it. So that's what I love about it. And then also, it takes into consideration all of my experience. So, like I said, sometimes I do HR consulting. Why? Because I still love HR and I can still get a taste of that. And then I can also flip the switch and do personal finance. And so, being that you create pretty much your own gig, you create your
Right.
own job, you can continuously do what you love to do all the time.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so you've taken this Money Talk with Tiff, your website and your brand and your business, and it's creating multiple income streams for you. It's not just well, maybe we can explore that. What are some of the income streams that you've created from doing this thing that you love that doesn't feel like work?
Oh yeah, there's so many. So one thing that I love to do is write, right? So that's how it started as a blog. I was just writing. Now, I did not know until I started going to conferences that you can get paid to write. So one thing I started to do was freelance writing. So all of those big publications you see, like the Forbes, the MSNBCs, the all of them, they all pay the writers that write for them. So I started pitching. I started getting into freelance writing. So I've done that. I take coaching clients. So I still do individual coaching on a limited basis, just because that is time consuming, but it's just so fun for me too. So
Right.
I do take coaching clients. I create courses. I'm like, oh gosh, I speak. I do a lot of speaking. That's probably where the majority of my income comes from because I love to talk.
Right.
So I'm like, all of these things I used to get in trouble for when I was little. Now I can get paid to do. So I love speaking. Let me see what else. What am I missing? Oh, brand partnerships. So, I've done product reviews. I've done videos, just all types of stuff, between brands. What else? There's just so many different avenues. And honestly, I wouldn't have known about any of these had I not gone to conferences, particularly for people that do what I do. And everybody else is saying how they make money. I'm like, what? Like, you mean to tell me I've been doing this stuff, and like even something as simple as putting ads on my website. Like
Right.
I just did that this year, and I had no idea that that was a thing for a while. So yeah.
What conferences are you going to learn these things?
So FinCon,
Yep.
FinCon, that's the main conference that I go to. I love it. My first one was in 2019, and I just learned so much every single year. So FinCon, we're in Orlando this year, so hopefully I see some people out there. But it's nothing but money nerds.
Yeah, yeah. FinCon for financial conference. I've done the virtual conference for the last 2 years through COVID, which is I've never done the in-person conference, but yeah, it's cool. It's like everyone who has a podcast that I listen to is there, and everyone
Mhm.
whose blog I read is there, and it's money nerds. Yeah, I think you nailed it. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and you have to do in person. Like I can tell you from experience, the virtual did no justice.
No, okay, good.
You have to do in person because really it's the chance meetings in the hallways, in the hotel lobbies, that type of thing. That's actually how I got on Bigger Pockets.
Oh,
So,
good. Yeah.
it's just you get to meet so many people that are just like you.
Right,
So
right. Yeah. Yeah, it's networking. Like to me, I always like success a lot, but not more than a lot. I would say majority of success comes from networking,
Mhm.
and it's not like you have to be this slimy sales guy, kind of working your way up. It's chance encounters in an elevator at a money conference, right? It's um, being a receptionist and talking to the HR director as she walks by. Like that is networking. You don't have to you can go to big networking events that are purposeful for this, but you can also just pay attention to the people that are already in your surrounding you, and leveraging those relationships just organically. And
Mhm.
you're really good at that.
Yeah, and I will say also what has helped me tremendously is just volunteering in my local community too. I serve on a ton of boards. I actually had to start cutting back on some, but I serve on a lot of boards and those opened up opportunity as well. So, really at the forefront of what I do is helping other people. And then whatever comes out of that just comes out of that. But, I do it with a pure mind, a pure heart. I just want to give back. I just want to teach people. I just want to help. And then usually the opportunities just flow to me. So, I'm a big believer in energy and that on a daily basis, we're just doing an energy exchange. And so what you put out is what you get in return. And so I highly, highly, highly encourage your listeners to please get out in your community, volunteer, find whatever it is you love to do. And it also helps you figure out what you like to do.
Right.
So if you just get out there and volunteer in your community, you can try out different things. And then whatever seems to stick, you're like, okay, well, let me see how I can make money with this.
Right. Yeah, I like the trying out different things thing for sure. Like
Mhm.
you're volunteer for different organizations, and when you volunteer, you're gonna sometimes be the admin, sometimes be the janitor, sometimes be the bookkeeper, and like you're helping run a small business, and there's a lot of different jobs that they get done there. Um, I have a question for you. So sort of I'm an older person now, 44. I was trying to figure this out before the show. 43 or 44. I think I'm 44 now. But it doesn't sound right coming out of my mouth. But I guess I have to look in the mirror and really be honest with myself. Yes, I'm in my 40s. But that being said, I was watching. I'm a reality TV guy. I love watching reality TV. It's my thing. I've been on 6 reality TV shows when I was in my 20s. Like that was like how I was gonna. That's how I was gonna make money. I didn't make any money doing that, but it was fun. What I'm getting at is I was watching the show last night. Netflix, this new reality show, dating show called The Ultimatum, and I have a point. I'll get there. But the ultimatum is basically a couple saying, "Hey, you have to go. You choose to marry me, or I'm breaking up with you." Which is very similar to the show I was on called Blind. Well, man, what was it called? Blind Date show, A Change of Heart. I was on a show called Change of Heart, where basically someone comes in and says, "Hey, you get to go on a date with a temptor," and then after the date, you come back and say, that I want to stay together, or you know what, now that I've explored, I want to go date someone else. But this takes it over like a 2 month span. So you actually live with someone for a month, and then you come back and decide. Then you live with a month with your current partner, and then you decide if you want to move forward or not. That being said, everyone, all the men on that show, their feedback was, I'm not ready to get married because I want to get my financial um, affairs in order. Which to me, that's a generational thing. I don't remember anyone when I was in my 20s saying, I want to get my financial affairs in order. That's what I was saying, and everyone thought I was crazy. They're like, what, because I was like, no, I'm not going to the bar, I'm drinking water only tonight, or I'm going to walk instead of pay for the subway, or whatever it was. I was the oddball. I was like, why, you're in your 20s, why do you even care about finances? But every single dude on there was like, I can't get married until I get my personal affairs in order, my financial affairs in order. I mean, and I understand the generation now is saddled in debt from college loans. The job prospects aren't as rosy as they were when I was in my 20s. There's new challenges. One, is that what you're seeing out there as well? And two, what advice, if so, what advice would you have to those people?
So, yeah, I think like especially with the pandemic, I feel like more people became in tune with their money. Like I think it kind of sat everybody down like, okay, y'all, you need to start paying attention to this. So I think more people are more in tune with their money. Now, I will say that there's balance, right? Because it will never be perfect. And you don't want, the love of your life to go away because you're trying to get something in order that will never be perfect. You get what I'm saying? Now, on the flip side of that, you should definitely make sure that you are in route, or because the main cause of divorce is financial issues, financial problems, financial arguments. And so you kind of don't want to get into that thing with your soon to be partner. And so you want to at least have your situation under control. Like I've seen situations where their stuff wasn't even under control and they tried to jump into something and then it became a whole bunch of secrets, a whole bunch of lies. Then the person found out and it was just like, ooh, why didn't you tell me this? That type of thing. So you want to make sure that you at least have your stuff in order. At least, if budgeting is your thing, have a budget, make sure you're paying down your debt. If it's not all the way gone, at least have a plan. I think that would be very helpful, especially for men. Men kind of have this, well, I don't know now, but, it used to be like, oh, I have to provide, I have to take care of my family, that type of thing. And so a lot ties into that. And so if you feel inadequate, as in you don't have your financial stuff in order, you're like, how can I leave this house? And then it becomes like a whole like identity crisis and, so on and so forth. And I'm just speaking from a woman point of view. I'm not a man, but that's just how I imagine these things go. Right. And so for me, I feel like as men, you should pay attention to your finances, women too. But also that way you don't have to go into a situation where you're not being truthful and honest from the get-go. I feel like that can definitely make or break a relationship.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And you want to date someone that you're aligned with financially, with goal wise, because otherwise no one's happy, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So what sort of are good things for someone who's just maybe listening to this and say, Tiff, this is great. I've got $50,000 of debt. Where do I start?
Yeah. So you start with your goals. You start with awareness, like where you're at currently, where you want to be, because it's hard to aim at something if you don't have a target. So you have to kind of know, okay, if you have 50,000, what does that consist of? Like, is it credit cards? Is it cars? Is it like, what is it? So then kind of break that down. And what I tell people is have those big reach goals. Like, let's say it's 50,000. That sounds like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. But when you break it down, let's say per debt, so let's say it's 2,000 for this student loan, maybe 1,000 for this one, maybe 10,000 for the car, whatever. It kind of makes it more. You kind of see it a little better. It makes it more achievable, and that's kind of how I did mine. So I had paid off over 50,000 in a little less than 2 years. Wow. And how I did it was I broke down my debts into bite-sized pieces. And once I started getting like the paid in full letters, it kept motivating me to kind of go harder and to see if I can do it a little faster. And so you can start playing a game with yourself like, okay, I paid off this one in 2 months. Let me see if I can do this one in 1 month, or that type of thing. And when I say it was any means necessary, because that's what was important to me, when I was looking at my goals, my values, what I deemed important in my life, debt payoff was number one. That was first and foremost. And so since I had that vision, it made it easier for me to say no to things that didn't serve that vision, or it made it easier for me to look at different situations like, okay, maybe I need to make a little more money, or maybe I need to jump into this side hustle, or whatever the case may be. It kind of makes you see things clearer. So start with a vision, start with some goals. Go ahead and create a budget, because it's going to be very, 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 very hard to reach any financial goal if you have no idea how your money's flowing in and out.
Right, yeah.
You have to.
So this is going to sound really weird, but you think exactly like I did. Like when I was in your age, early 30s, starting in my 20s, that's how I thought. One, make it a game because it was fun for me, right? And then two, just use, you pay off one bill, you get excited and you want to do a second one, and then the third. Like that to me was my dopamine hits, which sounds weird to some people, but once you do it once, you feel good. It's similar to like losing weight. If you lose 5 pounds, great, let's lose 10 pounds. If you lose 10 pounds, let's lose 15, right? It's the same sort of mindset, same sort of motivation. If you're a runner, I ran a 5K, let's run a 10K, let's run a half marathon. Like you just keep, what else can I accomplish? What else can I accomplish? And so, but if you try to start with the marathon, or you try to start with losing 50 pounds, it seems impossible. Like you can't climb that mountain in a day, right? But you can climb 100 feet up that mountain. And then maybe tomorrow we do another 100 feet. And then maybe the third day, 105 feet or whatever it is. So I like the bite-size goals. I think I 100% believe in that. I think that's where it starts. That's where it starts. And then you can visualize, like you aren't visualizing the peak of the mountain. You're visualizing what's in front of you, right? And just go from there.
Yeah. And just to add on to that, even to this day, I use that strategy. So like, let's say for instance, this year, I have a little competition going on with some of my sisterpreneur friends. So other females that are entrepreneurs too. And we have a goal to do 100,000, like whoever can get to 100,000 first this year. Right. Yeah. And so when I was doing my business budget back, the end of December last year, I was like, okay, let me break this down and see how I can accomplish this. And then once I did that, I was like, oh, well, really, all I need to do is write 2 articles this month, or, all I need to do is bring on 3 more clients, or, and so it started making things a little easier to see, because I mean, if you're an entrepreneur, 100,000 in profit is a lot. It's a big mountain to climb. And so when you start breaking it down into bite-sized pieces, you're like, well, it doesn't seem too far away. I can actually see how this is, how I can accomplish this, and how, easy it could possibly be if I just dial in my numbers. So my point there is, you don't just have to do it with expenses. You can do it with income. You can do it. There's so many different ways, and it all goes back to those small little goals.
Yeah. So you said it again, like, hey, it's like you did before, I just need 2 or 3 Uber rides, right? Oh, I just need to do 2 or 3 articles. Like that seems achievable, but $100,000 seems, oh my gosh, that seems overwhelming. Oh, but just two extra articles a day. Oh, it takes me an hour to write an article. Oh, so it's just 2 hours. Like you make it so easy. And I want to, this shirt that you sell on your website, I want to share that right here, about how you break down the millionaire, which I love. Let me pull that up here.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, here it is. Oops, that's you. All right, so where's the shirt here? I just saw it. Store. Am I sharing my desktop? Can you see it?
No, I can't.
Okay, all right. Sorry. Share. Anyway, I'll read the shirt.
Letting us be great.
Yes. Okay. You have a shirt that says $1 million a year, 80 with underneath it $83,333 a month, $19,230 a week, $2,739 a day. Like this is exactly how you think. Let's break this down. What do I need to do as a millionaire? And then you could, then I see what you do. You say, well, how do I make $2,730 a day? How many Uber rides is that? How many articles do I have to write? How many clients do I have to take? I love that. And here you go. Chrome
And
is
it
also, yeah.
And it makes things more realistic because if you think, oh gosh, okay, $1 million a year, how the heck am I going to make
Right.
$1 million a
Yeah.
year?
Yeah.
But then when you see that it's only like 2,000 and something dollars a day, which granted, that's still a lot of money, but you can also say, okay, for 2,000 something dollars a day, maybe if you do like speaking and stuff like that, maybe you do one talk a day or,
Right.
whatever your price point is. So it kind of just makes it a little easier to see things. And you could even take that same concept, even if 1 million is not your number, because that is kind of up there.
Yeah.
Let's say a 500,000 or a 250,000 or whatever it is. And you just take those numbers and break it down to what does that mean every day for me? And whatever that looks like, you can kind of rinse and repeat. So when you get to the next level, it's like, okay, what does this daily number look like? So that's kind of how I like to look at things. And speaking of the FIRE movement, one of my favorite books is Your Money or Your Life by Vicki Robbins. And it just opened up my mind to, because you start thinking about money in terms of time, right? And
Right.
so, for instance, if you see a pair of shoes and they're $100, how many, and let's say you make $10 an hour, well, that's 10 hours of your time you're going to have to give up just to get this pair of shoes. Is it really worth it for you?
Right.
So just kind of thinking about your money in different ways, I feel has been helpful for me.
Yeah. And I think it's your mindset on this. Like if you're excited about this, if you're interested in really changing your life, you're going to come across, utilizing these steps, and you're going to start finding your own things. Like, wow, for me, I was hiding money from myself. And so my strategy, and my first book, $1,000,000 by 30, it was, I hated budgeting. Most people hate budgeting. So I was just, I just like, I'm just going to spend whatever's in my checking account because then I don't have to budget. But what I did is I went to HR, to the person like you, and say, listen, I got direct deposit. I want 50% to go to this banking account, and I want 50% to go to this other bank account across town. And that way, I never went to the one across town. I couldn't log on online. I had to do it in person. I didn't know my codes. And then, so I was forced to live on 50% of my paycheck, but I didn't feel like I was budgeting because it was like, I can spend whatever's in there. Every day I get paid every 2 weeks on my salary. I knew exactly what it was going to be. And then every January 1st, I'd make it across town and say, that's the money I have to go buy a house. And so every year I had enough money to save a house, and I didn't feel like I was budgeting because I knew the type of person I was. I didn't even want to look at the numbers, but I was happy living on 50% of my salary. And so it's not all these strategies work for everyone, but I bet you listen to Money Talk with T, you're going to you're going to find one or two or three things that are going to work for you. And you're reading other books. I do the same thing, listen to other podcasts, reading other books. Take piecemeal up strategy for yourself. And I think you can really change your life. And what I loved about you're doing it is you start in your 20s. And this now that I'm in my 40s, like the things I worry about are so different than my peers who are in their 40s who didn't start thinking about money in their 20s, right? And so if you're in your 30s, if you're in your 40s, like imagine if you started now and you got, it's a marathon, right? A decade. It takes a decade to really see these things, these strategies pay off. So if you're in your 40s now, start now. It's going to pay off in your 50s. If you're 50s, it's going to pay off when you're 60s. But if you never start, you're always going to have the same stresses. You're always going to have the same things. But man, like I'm telling you, you're 31 and I'm 44. Like what you're doing now, your life in your 40s is going to be better than you ever imagined because you're taking, you're compounding all those returns for a decade that, people learn too late for sure.
Yeah, and that's what I tell people too. It's never too late to get started. Like like if you're 60, like I have clients that are like 60 and they're like, "Okay, I don't have anything in retirement. What can I do? Let's go."
Right.
So it's never too late. I feel like, you know, the definition of insanity is to continue doing the same thing and expect a different result. So if you feel like, if you're not happy with your financial situation, or you feel like you're not making any progress, then do something different. Maybe you need a coach or somebody or counselor to step in and say, okay, maybe if you look at this differently, you can make some headway here. And I also wanted to mention, there's so many different ways to budget. And that's why I kind of use the term budget, like, on other podcasts and stuff, I'll say, okay, if you don't like the word budget, because I know it's a trigger word for some people, it's a cash flow something, or a money manifestation tool, whatever you want to call it. But there's so many different ways to do it. And that's also the benefit of getting like a counselor or a coach that has experience in all the different ways. So that way you can keep trying different things and see what sticks for you. I know for me, what helped, because I love budgeting, right? So I love making my expenses, and making sure I know every dollar has its spot before that month starts. But what made it enjoyable for me was, I look at budgeting, I don't look at it as a restriction, I look at it as permission. And so for me, because I also deal with anxiety really bad too. So for me, it allows me to give myself permission to do the things that I want to do while not getting off track with other things that I want to accomplish. And so I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything, or, anything like that. I look at my budget like, okay, I can go out and eat out, X amount of times a month or whatever. And that's not going to like take me off of my debt payoff,
Right.
So it kind of gives me a peace, since I look at it that way. But that's also a mind hack. You kind of have to look at things differently, in order to stick with it.
I love that. So where did you learn to do, like, did you grow up in a household where your parents were emphasized money? Where is Tiff come from? Like, where does this mindset come from? This motivation?
Honestly, it came from seeing the opposite happen at home. So like, I've said many times on different podcasts and even my own, I grew up in households where people were spenders. Like, they loved to spend money. Like my mom, she had a credit card stack like that big when I was younger. And she would always, like, when we went to stores, which was good for me as a child because I got whatever I want. But now looking back, I'm like, woo, that was a lot, a lot of debt. But I've seen her go through, bankruptcies, foreclosures, all types of stuff, and really my whole immediate family. So like even my grandparents and everything. So I'm like, okay, this is not the type of life that I want. So back when I was like 16, I had a car that my mom had, financed for me or whatever. But when I got my first job, she was like, oh, well, now you have to take over this payment. And I'm like, oh, okay. So, just thinking I'm making $7.25 an hour, and now I'm having to pay like this $300 something car payment every month. Mind you, I'm still in school, so I'm only working part-time. So that's kind of what started me on this, being frugal, budgeting, that type of thing, because I had to make my money stretch. And I ended up becoming one of those extreme couponers when I was 16. Like, I would go in stores, have a cart full of stuff for like $20. And I just got a high from saving money. Like, we talk about the dopamine hits and stuff. And, usually people are on one side of the spectrum. Either they get a dopamine hit from saving money or spending money. But I feel like you have to kind of have a balance of both. So I think where you should be is kind of in the middle. But I was an extreme saver. And I used to love saving money. So that was my dopamine hit. But it's like, once you become aware of these things, you can start working through the mental. Like, I tapped into, oh, I feel this way because I saw what happens when you have a lot of debt and when you have a lot of credit cards and things like that. So I was terrified of credit cards. I had to get over that fear, because you have to have credit to get credit, unfortunately.
Right.
So I had to get over that fear and put myself out there to get a credit card. But just tapping into the emotions and stuff that you experience as you're going through your financial journey is important too, because believe it or not, money is way more emotional, way more psychological than most of us think. It all really starts in your head. And that's when I started thinking about these different mind hacks and thinking about different ways to think about things in order to get through my own blocks. So that's what I teach people about now.
I love that. So let's So you offer coaching services. How does that work? So if someone listening here is saying, "Hey, Money Talk with Tiffany, turn me around." What do you? Is it a program that's a monthly program, a check-in, or is it a 1 week sort of boot camp, or how do you run your financial courses?
Yeah, so it's actually a 6 month program. So it's called the Make Your Money Talk program. But I learned that 6 months is really the sweet spot for this because, like I said, we do the work. Like we get into like the psychological aspect of things. We get into tracking your expenses. All the different things that I talked about in this podcast is kind of what we work through. So it's not a quick fix. This stuff, like we're literally changing your mindset. We're changing your beliefs. We're rewriting your history. So it's not going to be something that's quick. So it's a 6 month program. You can find out more about it on my website. You actually have to apply to get in because I also believe that, you know, not everybody's for everybody, right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
so you have to find your good fit. So, you know, you apply, we have a little conversation, see if we're a good fit for each other, and then we kind of go from there. Now, if you don't need anything that in depth, I also offer just pick my brain sessions, is what I call it. And those are just an hour in length. And you can pretty much talk about whatever you want to talk about and just pick my brain. So, a lot of people that use that are like business owners. They want to pick my brain about ways they can improve their business or what have you. Or if it's just a quick financial situation that you're like, okay, I just need a second opinion on this. I realize that a lot of people use that for that as well.
Well, that's awesome. How can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can find me on my website, moneytalkwitht.com. There you can find my blog, you can find my podcast. It's pretty much the Tiffany hub for everything Tiffany. And then also you can find me on all social media platforms at Money Talk with T. And when I say all, I mean literally all. I am a social media junkie. So
Awesome. Well, you do a good job at it. I'm just curious, what part of the country are you in?
I'm in North Carolina,
Okay.
to the East Coast.
Yeah. Well, I'm in Atlanta, not too far away. So
Oh,
I make my way to North Carolina quite often. Yeah.
yeah. And I come to Atlanta quite often. So
Well, let's get in touch in person and keep talking money. Well, thank you so much for joining the House of AC, Tiff. It's what's great to see what you're doing and helping others, and like, keep at it. Like I feel like a proud father. I'm like I'm looking at myself like 13 years ago when I was 31. So yeah, you're doing the right things. That's all I can say is you're doing the right things, and you already know that. Like you're seeing the results of that. So good on you.
absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun. And if nobody took anything else from this, if you're just like, womp, womp, womp,
Yeah.
womp, spend less than you make. There
Yeah.
you go.
Yes. That's harder. That's easier said than done for some people, but that's the that's the gist of every financial advice. So, guys, go do it. Go check out Money Talk with T. And thanks for joining us. And I'll